Welcome back to the Varsity Voices Media Network, where Chicago Catholic League football takes center stage. This is our Prognosticus episode. It's our weekly deep dive into our predictions, storylines, and calls as we head into Week 9, which is the regular season finale. It's been a good ride. We've seen some statement wins, breakout stars, playoff dreams kind of hanging by a thread. And tonight we'll break down every key matchup from Montini's and Mount Carmel's quest to stay unbeaten in those win-or-go-home games for some of the bubble teams. And the margins are thin. The pressure is high. And for some of these teams, Friday night could be the difference between packing the pads or punching a playoff ticket. So buckle up because Prognosticus Week 9 starts now. Dan, here we are, the last game of the regular season, Week 9. And I'm thinking about sitting here in this exact same spot. I think you were sitting in the exact same spot. And it was Week 1. And I feel like it was just a couple of days ago.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
From that point to now, I always say it's like the end of the road now. And it diverges, right? Those that go home and those that go on, but it's the end of this road. So
it is.
It goes by really fast. You try and tell players as freshmen to enjoy it. You try and tell parents to enjoy it, just enjoy it because it's over in the blink of an eye. And it's crazy how fast they go through that time and these 9 weeks, and we see the change of seasons and we feel it. And we talked about it at Carmel, giving Eli Jackson Dog of the Week. That first week we did it in t-shirt and shorts.
Right. And we were hot. We were sweating.
Yes. So
right.
It's crazy. It's crazy how fast it changes. Everyone always says, "Oh, the weather's so different this year than it feels like it's pretty much the same."
Pretty much the same. I was talking to somebody today, and they were talking the same thing about the weather, and I feel like it's changing so much. And I thought about over the last 20 years, 25 years, as my kids have grown up, and I thought about Halloween. And I have been out on Halloween in all sorts of different weather. I've been out there in snow, heat, sleet, so all sorts of weather. Freezing cold. Yes.
Joe, I had the same conversation. I've been to school parades at the local where the kids went to elementary school.
Yeah.
And froze my butt off.
Right.
On Halloween. And shoveled snow on Halloween.
Yes.
So,
I have too.
If that doesn't happen, I consider it a victory. So there's going to be snow in the playoffs, at some point. Yep.
For sure. Yeah. You think about it. And that leads us into, Dan, the playoffs. We got some teams in the Chicago Catholic League who are really on the cusp as to whether they're going to get in or not. They won't necessarily find that out till later this weekend. When is the selection? Is that Saturday?
Night.
Saturday night. Yeah.
8 o'clock, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's local. It's local on WCIU for Chicago viewers. It's also on NFHS Network. So they stream it as well. So So if you're not able to get WCIU for whatever reason, you can always go to NFHSnetwork.com.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com.
Yeah. All right. Good. And we've got some good games this week, too.
We do, yeah.
In Week 9. The first one here that we want to cover, Dan, is Montini and St. Lawrence. What do you think about this game? Both of these teams, Montini obviously 8-0, and I'm thinking their motivation in Week 9 here is they'd like to go undefeated, I think.
Yeah,
right.
I've seen that reported that the coach Book said that they that's something that's only been done a few times. And
Right.
so the team would go down in history, which is a big deal at Montini.
It is a big deal,
yeah.
and so Montini obviously they're having a dominant season. Their offense has been humming. They've been scoring over 40 points in multiple games over the last several weeks. I think the White Division title is on the line for Montini. And if they win, they get that, which I'm not sure how much that matters anymore to some of the teams, but it's something you can get that trophy, put it up in your trophy case as far as the White Division champs, right? So I think they've got to keep leaning on what they've done all year. I don't think they change anything in this game as far as their offense or defense. They just play their game. And, you put it on St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence is the ones who, even though they're 5-3, they're in the playoffs. So they're good. But I know they want to have a good showing here against Montini.
Yeah, and you want that higher seed. If you're down there 5-3, 5-4, 6-3, you could play a 9-0 or an 8-1, and regardless of how it plays out, that's a little scary.
It is. Yeah, it is a little scary. So, but I like Montini in this game, Dan. I think they've got a ton of firepower. They've got a really good defense as well. I think they're just a complete team, and I think they do end up going undefeated this year and going 9-0. And I think St. Lawrence just is not quite there yet to compete with the talent that Montini has, but I think St. Lawrence gives them a good game as well. But I do pick Montini in this game.
Yeah, Joe, I was looking at some of the stats out there. We've talked about a lot of receiving cores that are really good. I mean, Montini's, the stats are, and I know, Izzy Abrams is fantastic at the quarterback position, but Damasio Ortegon, Luca Florio, Nico Castaldo. Then in the running game, you've got Charles Flowers, Isaac Alexander. They're just kind of loaded offensively. Defensively, with Santino Tenuta, one of our favorites, Orlando Greco, Laddie Assay. They've got Ben Evenson, dog winner. So they've really got your star power that you like to lean on. And earlier today, we were talking about a team being up and down. I feel that way about St. Lawrence. I feel like they've been up and down, up and down. I was really surprised at their loss last week. They hung with Carmel in earlier this season and gave Carmel a great game. So I feel like they're kind of finding their way. I still think they're unsettled at quarterback. I don't know if they've had injuries. I've seen it reported where a name we hadn't heard before, Jalen King, might be their quarterback.
Right. Okay.
So one constant they have is Sean Rice, who's just a stud, both sides of the ball, really, really good player. But I don't think they have enough for Montini. They'll probably make it a closer game at St. Lawrence. A lot of motivation there, but my pick is going to be Montini. We're riding the Bronco this week.
You're riding the Bronco. Yep. I like it. I like it. We haven't said that in a while, but I feel like we kind of take them for granted, right? Week in, week out,
start to happen.
Yeah, so we got to let them know we are riding the Bronco. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, through the playoffs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. The next game, Mount Carmel and Loyola, and week 1, Dan, if we would have looked at these schedules for Mount Carmel and Loyola, we would have really been pointing to this game in week 9 that this was going to be a huge game. It hasn't quite turned out that way this year. Mount Carmel, obviously, is good as advertised.
Yeah.
Yes. Loyola, a little bit tougher this year. And I still see some predictions where they can make it into the playoffs. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that. Maybe if they were playing somebody else other than Mount Carmel, they might have that possibility, but they would get 4 wins, right? And then need everything to kind of fall their way. I just don't think they have near the talent or the horses that they need to hang with Mount Carmel. The only thing I could think here was that, and we talked about this maybe in a previous episode, Does Mount Carmel maybe rest some guys, getting ready for the playoffs?
Sit the all-conference guy and play the all-state guy and play the all-conference guy?
Yes. They sit the all-American guys.
Right.
And they play the all-state guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can go 2 deep on Mount Carmel, 3 deep in some positions, and still there's not much of a drop-off. So I think Mount Carmel wins this game over Loyola. I think they probably win it pretty easily if they want to, and we'll see how that kind of plays out. But I'm picking Mount Carmel in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to take Mount Carmel too. And I don't know if I'm surprised by a Loyola or not. We felt like there had some questions going into the year. I think they started in a way that we were like, "Whoa, all right, Loyola is Loyola still," and they probably are, but they're just young. At key positions right now. So so it's I don't know. It's hard to talk about playoff perspective when you don't know if 4-4 will get them in or not. But I don't think that they've got the personnel to match up with Mount Carmel this year. But I think I felt like that even as good as they were last year. I felt like Mount Carmel was machine last year too, and Loyola took it to them. So they're gonna play it, and
they're gonna play the game for sure.
So there's a lot of motivation for Loyola. Probably really tough practices this week and coming off a tough loss. I don't know what that'll do to these guys mentally. If they get down, if they'll start to, dread a little bit and worry, or, what kind of fight they have based on their experience. So, I'm going to pick Mount Carmel. I just think they're too talented for everyone in this league.
Yeah, they are. I agree 100%. So, all right. What do you think about Nazareth and St. Francis, Dan? Another game, week 1, we would have looked at the schedules and thought this is going to be a really good game, and it probably is. At this point, they both have had really good seasons at this point.
Yeah, they're both in. Obviously, both playing for seeding now, and some bragging rights out here in the suburbs a little bit. Excuse me, but how injured is Brock Phillip? But sophomore, quarterback Iggy Amarotu, played really well.
Played good.
The future looks bright, and they've talk about receiving cores. This is one that we've known about. Milivojevic has just been awesome all year.
Outstanding.
Just a really, really solid player. I love Tanner Glock on both sides of the ball. I think he's a stud. I think he's underrated. I believe St. Francis can put up points against anyone, but that'll be challenged this week against Nazareth at Nazareth. And St. Francis has beaten them 2 years in a row in the regular season. Nazareth tends to get the better of them in the playoffs. I'm sure St. Francis would like to flip that script. If we go all the way back to the summer, that was the thing that Brady Hill, the St. Francis offensive lineman, said, they want to change. It's on their mind. So both teams may have eyes on the playoffs, but you can't really do that against the other because they're so talented. You can get run off the field by either one of these teams. Have that capability. I'm going to pick Nazareth. I think defensively, they're really, really good, and they've been putting up huge numbers, offensively as well. Jackson Fayez seems to be really, really hitting his stride. So I'm going to go with Nazareth at home this week.
Yeah, I think this might be one of the differences here. I feel like St. Francis might have, at the beginning of the season, this game has a check mark next to it, right, on the calendar for them. I'm not sure if it does for for Nazareth. Obviously, they know this always going to be a good game, these two teams. But I think this game might mean a little more to St. Francis than it does for Nazareth at this point. The only thing that, if this game were at St. Francis, Dan, I would pick St. Francis in this game, but it's at Naz, which we know what kind of home field advantage they have.
That's a real one there. Yeah,
it is. And I think this is going to be a shootout. I really do. I mean, think about the number of players and the talent that is going to be on this field.
Really fun to watch. If you're a fan of high school football, this would be one to circle and maybe try and get to.
I think this game is going to be closer than maybe some people might think, but I'm going to pick Nazareth in this game as well.
Okay.
What about Brother Rice and St. Ignatius, Dan? We know we've covered Brother Rice pretty extensively this year, and we know how strong they are, how talented they are on both sides of the ball, on offense and defense, and they played that way throughout the whole year. They are solid. They don't have many holes anywhere or weak points, I guess, that you can try and exploit. And I think for St. Ignatius, what they would want to do would be kind of control the ball, running the ball, and try and slow the game down a bit and keep Brother Rice's offense off the field. But we've talked about all the guys on Brother Rice and their defense, right? Just outstanding. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you run the ball against this defensive line for Brother Rice. And I feel like, St. Ignatius may try and maybe throw the ball a bit here, but that's not what they do. That's not what they try and do and do well. But I just think St. Ignatius's strength as far as trying to run the ball goes right up against one of Brother Rice's real strengths as well, and that's their defensive line, their linebackers. They just play really well and at a high level. So I don't think there's a chance for St. Ignatius in this game, and I'm going to pick Brother Rice to win this game.
Yeah, last week was the first week I had, when we were covering games, I was watching Brother Rice and I had him on the featured screen in the Varsity Voices cockpit. And
right.
So,
war room?
Yeah,
in the war room.
Yeah. So I mean, they're awesome. That D line, sometimes when you see D linemen and you think, this is a really good player, it might be hard to see. Not with them. They are disruptive. They make a ton of plays. They get off blocks in a hurry. St. Ignatius is just going to have their hands full, trying to run their offense. This is a bad matchup.
It is.
It's a bad matchup. I love watching Jalen Green carry the football. I just think he's explosive, keeps his shoulders square. He's got great vision, acceleration, one cut when he needs it. CJ Gray plays his quarterback like a linebacker. He is tough as nails. I talked about the defensive line being as disruptive as any I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ignatius can use this to get more experience for, the Connors, Wanzung and Heights.
Mm-hmm.
And the one battle I'd like to watch, if I could get a TV camera or a camera right on Omar Sadin for St. Ignatius, because he's a man. Blocking for them and see how he does against that tough front. That would be fun. But I think Brother Rice just has the capability to get that 2-score advantage you always want against the team that runs the option like Ignatius. And so I think they can get that pretty quickly and probably build on it, put Ignatius in a spot they don't want to be in. So my pick is going to be for Brother Rice.
Okay. All right. And what about St. Patrick and St. Viator? So St. Patrick on the bubble here, right? They're 4-4. They need a win, go 5-4, which I think would be. Let me say this first. I want every Chicago Catholic League team to make the playoffs.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Right. Maybe next year, depending on, let's manipulate the rules a little bit.
Right.
But I really want St. Patrick to get this win and to get to 5-4 and to get in the playoffs. And it's because, they've been down for several years and they've got a new coach now in Zibikowski, who's I feel like has done a good job. Now they've been up and down. They've had some really nice wins, and they've had some blowout losses where they have not looked very good. But I would like to see them get into the playoffs and see what they can do once they get there, depending on what their seed is in that. So, and I think they're a little more talented than St. Viator is at this point in St. Viator's, where they're at in their kind of program growth and rebuild, whatever you want to call it. So I like what St. Patrick is doing. I want to see them continue to progress. I want to see them get into the playoffs and, maybe get a win in round one or whatever. But, I really like what they're doing there. I think they play tough on both sides. I think they're going to put it together, or this is a good opponent for them, I think, for the last game of the year where they can hopefully get a win and then, take that into the first round of the playoffs. And I like St. Patrick over St. Viator in this game.
Yeah, St. Pat's has the opportunity to be to carry the flag for the purple division this year.
Right.
The only one with a chance to get in. I guess Bennett, if they finish 4-5, they're going to watch the show, but it doesn't sound like they're on that list of maybes that like Loyola and Marist are. St. Pat's, Joe, I've said it a few times recently. They've got some players that are really fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Their D lineman, David Fuller-Joe, I can't say it enough. He's a beast of a D line. I hope he gets some All-State honors.
Yeah,
as he's a man out there. I love how he plays. He's getting power 4 looks, which is really nice and I think worthy of it. St. Viator does not look like are they 1-7?
They're 1-7. You're right.
They do not look like a 1-7 team.
They do not
look like
right.
It's hard for me to get my head around, and some of that is being Catholic League, but they just have not been able to put the ball in the end zone consistently. They're the best 20-20 team.
Yeah.
And the best 1-7 team in the state. Can you say that?
Right. You can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think you've nailed it over the course of the year, Dan, that they look really good between the 20s, right? And they're just, they don't quite have whatever that is to get themselves into the end zone on the offensive side of the ball. They play good defense. Pretty good defense, but their offense needs a little work, and it's primarily from when they're in the red zone. They got to be able to put it in. Yeah. You've been saying that all year.
I know. And if I go player by player, I'm like, that's a good player. They love their pass rusher. They got a guy that's a stud pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
They got some good interior linemen, and so St. Pat's ought to be on upset alert. That's, to me, I would really be pushing those guys this week because Viator, if they figure it out, Joe, they can score a lot of points.
Right.
If they so you've got to be ready. I mean, St. Pat's, I don't think that there's any world in which they are taking it easy this week or kind of mailing this one in because they are good enough to.
Yeah.
And they're too inconsistent as well. I am going to pick St. Pat's. I think it's going to be a little closer than we think. So and maybe that's just what some of these teams need. A little bit of a wake up call going into the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So we'll see with that game. So this next game, Providence versus Joliet Catholic. And is this the one you said is called the Holy War?
Yeah, I have read that somewhere. Maybe I made it up. I don't think
I do like it.
I do too.
Yeah.
There's the Battle of Pulaski, Marist and Brother Rice. There might be some others. We could probably come up with some.
Yeah.
I think that should be on our list of to-dos.
I think it should be in the off season. You mean start coming up with names for some games?
Wait,
names for some games.
Yeah, little offshoot here. Varsity Voices can create trophy games.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too. We'll have to
this
present
one. We are dubbing this game the Holy Wars.
We may either be dubbing it
or the Holy War,
borrowing it. Yeah. Not very holy on our part, but
no.
The Joliet Catholic's got they're sneaky still. I mean, it's Joliet Catholic, and you're calling them sneaky, and they've got some of the weapons we've talked about, and throwing the ball around a little bit, this year, and trying to do some different things. Their defense is solid. They've had a couple down games, but they still have personnel that is capable of beating a guy on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah.
So I think this game's going to be really close because it's a rivalry. Joliet Catholic would like nothing more than to beat Providence, and Providence would love to be the absolute nail in the coffin for Joliet Catholic. Keep them at 3 wins, no discussion of getting in. You are done, and we did that. However, Joe, I think at Joliet Catholic, I'm picking an upset. I'm picking Joliet Catholic to at home rise up and get this victory over Providence. Providence has been riding high a little bit. I think Joliet Catholic, they could be sneaking up on them, which again is weird to say, but I'm picking JCA in an upset this week.
All right, and as I went through the games this week, Dan, and thought, do I have any upset picks at all? And this was the one game that I thought, Joliet Catholic, I feel like, has been right there on the cusp all year. Yeah, they've got blown out in some games, and it's not quite the same Joliet Catholic team, but we know how they play and how hard they play, and what this game means to them. It's the last game of the regular season. They're not getting in the playoffs. 95% guaranteed, even if they win this game. But I think there's a lot of pride on the line here for Joliet Catholic, and I'm picking Joliet Catholic well. I am, and what kind of put me over the top was this is at Joliet Catholic, and I was thinking about the seniors who are on that team and moving on next year. And they are going to want to go out on a win. And I think they are going to put everything they have into this game to beat Providence. So
yeah, it's their playoff game. That's kind of how they have to look at it. It's their playoff game. Providence is in regardless. But it's Joliet Catholic's playoff game. So I think we're going to see that bear out.
Yeah. So, I like for us to be maybe on different sides, with some of the games. And I thought for sure we might be there because you have been Mr. Celtic all year.
Where's my hat?
Right. I thought for sure you were going to pick Providence in this. But anyways, we are on the same side.
Yeah.
You do like Guinness.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
What about, are we going to be on the same side in this next game, Dan, and this IC versus St. Rita? Tell me what you think here.
Big game. St. Rita. Yeah. They're like the team that is the ultimate BATW.
Yes.
Right? Win and get in and lose, and they got to get on the Hopa Express train.
Hopa for 4 wins gets in.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I see it 6-2 is in. Right, comfortably in. You don't want to take again. I want to say it again. You don't want to take that 6-3 path. So they'd love to be at 7-2. It's a big deal in the seedings. Rita has to have the stars step up. Armbruster, Jones, Brandon Johnson, Owen Lynch on the defensive side of the ball. You got to try and. I mean, slowing down IC is really tough. Mm-hmm. Nate Lang, Foley Calcagno. Grant Bowen, they're loaded offensively,
right?
And they've played like it. They've been over 40 points several times this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be a real challenge. It's at IC, and that's a I don't know how much of a home field advantage IC is, but I really think that it's going to be a struggle. I think IC is kind of a team on the uptick.
Right.
You know, right now they're trending in the right direction as they go into the playoffs. So I'm picking IC.
Okay, you're sitting at the round table.
I am sitting at the round table.
Right. You know, all right, so we're going to
my sword.
Yeah, got your sword. We're going to differ here, Dan, because I like what St. Rita as we've talked about, and really a tough start for them. And I feel like, you know, they had the injury bug kind of bit them at the beginning of the year. Things just weren't clicking quite the way that they needed them to or wanted them to. I think there's a difference now. They've got all their stars back, like you mentioned, and I think they're starting to click and at the right time. And I think the motivation is here for them more so than it might be for IC, even though IC would probably love to be 7-2 versus 6-3, as far as from a seeding aspect. But I like what St. Rita has been doing, you know, after that slow start, and I think they're going to continue and build momentum here. And I'm going to pick St. Rita over IC in this game.
Yeah, I think that's I don't even think that's even, I mean,
it's not an upset, right?
We're not out on a limb, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't necessarily be an upset, but
yeah,
it's going to be a good game for sure.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one too. There's some great games. You know, you kind of think, oh, it's the last game. Teams are thinking about the playoffs. There are some great football games.
Yeah,
this week in this league. Yeah,
really are. Yeah. Okay, and our alma mater, Dan Bennett.
Yeah,
they are going up against DePaul Prep in the purple division, right?
Yep.
You know, and you know, the season for both of these teams has not gone very well, or not like how they had planned it. So I think Bennett is what, 3-5?
3-5, yeah.
DePaul is 2-6.
Yep.
You know, essentially both teams are out of the playoffs. You know, maybe if Bennett wins here, they get 4 wins, but I haven't seen any projections which show, you know, the class that Bennett would be in is going to have any 4-win teams get in, right? So yeah. I think this game, they're both teams are just kind of playing for pride and for hopefully some momentum going into next year, or something they could build on for next year. You know, I like the fight that DePaul Prep has put up over the course of the season, and knowing that they're young in some key positions. You know, but I do think that they've been, you know, every week, week in and week out, that they've been really, you know, fighting on both on offense and on defense. I've seen that with Bennett as well. You know, I just haven't seen enough consistency from Bennett as far as what they're going to do on offense and what they're going to be able to do on defense in order to stop DePaul Prep. So I am going to pick DePaul Prep in this game.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like you read my notes on it. So yeah, I have playing for pride. Both teams disappointed in this season. You know, the difference is they're both going to play a lot of young guys. You know, DePaul Prep's young guys have played the whole season, you know, in critical positions. Bennett's young guys have been forced into it by injury.
Right.
You know, so you can say, well, both teams are young, but Bennett's young guys, you know, I don't think they plan to play some of these young guys, and I know that there's some guys out of position. That said, I think they are, you know, I think they're the better team this year. I think, you know, that they probably have an opportunity to go out. They really are pushing for ending this season on an up note. So I'm gonna pick Bennett this week, and what I think, because it's at DePaul, long trip. You know, I think that's probably, I don't know if you call that an upset or not. You know, but I mean, Bennett beat DePaul last year, and right. DePaul's great season, and so maybe have something where they have their number a little bit. And I'm going to go with Bennett this week.
Okay. All right, so we differ on that one. All right, so the next game I have is Carmel Catholic versus Fenwick. Maybe the marquee game. right, in Chicago Catholic League this week.
Yeah, there's a few like that, Joe. St. Francis Naz.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
Yeah.
And we were out at Carmel this week presenting our Zuko's Dog of the Week winner award to Eli Jackson. So we got a chance to see him up close and personal. And we know what kind of talent they have. The one thing they don't have is the numbers, right?
Right. Yeah, I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, they can't go real deep on both sides of the ball. They've got a fair amount of guys going both ways. But I thought about that when I was looking at this game, and I thought Fenwick, when you think of Fenwick, what do you think of? You think of the Thies brothers, right? Who are supremely talented. Their quarterback as well, Jamin Williams, who's had a really good season. But Fenwick has a fair amount of guys going both ways too. But the amount of talent that's going to be on the field in this game is going to be huge.
Yeah, it's pretty rich.
It is pretty rich, and I'm not sure. For me, this game was kind of a toss up. But I looked again at some of the things that Fenwick was able to do last week against Mount Carmel, and we know how good Mount Carmel is. And I think it's probably something which was very difficult for Fenwick. They took Mount Carmel right down to the wire. And I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder coming into this game. And they're going to want to send a statement here. And, hopefully, or they're going to want to beat one of the better offenses in Carmel. So I'm going to pick Fenwick in this game.
All right. Well, it's 2 6-2 teams vying for position, right? It is one of the great games of the weekend. I feel like there's that phrase, it's the immovable object versus the unstoppable force.
Right.
And yeah. Two teams they're so similar to me in just not necessarily style, because it's not the same style, but they've had a great year. Even though Fenwick is coming off a loss, it's an impressive loss, if you could say. Carmel's coming off an impressive win against Loyola.
Right.
And I was going to do this without mentioning the brothers, because I think like you, I thought to myself, they have so much more than just those guys. Jamin Williams to start. I think he's the most efficient. Well, I don't know. Carmel and Montini might have an argument here, but I still feel like Jamin Williams is one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the league. Raphael Stewart at wide receiver. I love their tight end. Here's a guy who we haven't mentioned and should have, Jonathan Pavilon. He's a great target in the passing game, blocks his butt off. Defensively, Mike Murphy, linebacker, had the pick 6 last week. He's a stalwart. They have a defensive end. I was scrambling to find his name and couldn't find his name before we started. But another really good player. So they are really talented. That being said, I think Carmel is on fire. I think Trey Taylor is just clicking. Their offense is really kind of synced up. Probably could all run their plays with their eyes closed and complete passes. So it's at Carmel. I think Carmel is going to be able to score a bunch of points. I think they're at that point where we're going to score against anybody. And so my pick is for Carmel this week.
Okay. All right. Another really good game. Can't wait to see or watch, hopefully watch a little bit of it. Anyways. Yeah. Right. So what do you think about the Marist versus Notre Dame game, Dan?
I think what I could say about Marist is like kind of what I said about, what about those last two teams trending in the right direction.
Right.
And seem to be on a bit of a roll. They've won 3 in a row, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, they have won 3 in a row.
Yeah. Their running back, replacement, Connor Hunt, has been awesome. You've seen him before. You said, you love him. And, I think he's now a two-way player. And so the talent they have coming back, I think it's starting to come. I hope that if they get the win, that they can get in, because I think they're a good enough team to make some noise. They might get a bad seed, might be the last seed, which means you'd have to go up against the number 1 seed,
right?
Which is never fun. But I wouldn't want to play them, in the playoffs.
No, I wouldn't either. You're right.
Notre Dame, had 3 wins. Need this to get on the Hope Express, and so I don't think that they have enough at this time to stop Marist, on a mission. So my pick is going to be for Marist.
Yeah, I think that Marist, with the motivation, because I'm sure they have seen what the predictions or projections are out there as well, especially for 8A in the playoffs. Yeah. And everybody's been saying, if Marist can get to 4 wins, they're going to get in. Yeah, they're going to be a 31 or 32 seed or whatever it might be, but still, they're getting in. The other thing I like about Marist is it took them a while too, as we know, over the course of the season to kind of get going here. And they've got a little bit of a spark over the last several weeks, and I think they've got some momentum as well. And I think they want to keep that going. I know they don't want to go to the Prep Bowl. They want to make it to the playoffs this year,
right.
And I think they're really counting on that, and they're counting on getting to 4 wins and then crossing their fingers and hoping that gets them in. And I do think they're, peaking at the right time from a program standpoint or from a team standpoint. Notre Dame has put up a tough fight, all year against, most of their schedule. They've only come away with 3 wins. I'm sure they would love to get this as well. But I think Marist is just, they're kind of peaking. They've got some momentum. I think it's a little bit too much for Notre Dame at this point. So I'm picking Marist in this game.
Okay.
All right. And now we've got Leo and Marmion. So Marmion, they've had a tough go this year, especially the last 3 or 4 games here. I think they've got a 4-game losing streak going on right now. So they're coming into this game 3-5. They're essentially out of the playoffs. Leo as well at 3-5, out of the playoffs too. So for this game, I was trying to think. Both of these teams are going to go into this thinking we really want to win this next game to kind of have some momentum propelling us into next year. They're both young teams. Both have dealt with some injuries over the course of the year, and they were hoping for obviously a better season than they've had. Marmion last year made it to the playoffs. This year, they're not going to be able to do that. But, I do think Marmion has enough here, as far as even with some of their injured players and some of the injuries they've experienced over the course of the last several games. I think they've got enough here and enough talent that they're going to be able to win over Leo. So I'm picking Marmion over Leo in this game.
All right, Joe. Well, I think there's going to be some offense in this game. I think Leo, if they have a side of the ball where they struggle, it's defensively. Marmion, I feel like even though Vinny Testa's got a ton of heart and he's one of those guys that'll do whatever you ask. We had a chance to meet him this year. Great kid. We joked about him playing quarterback.
Right.
When we were out there, I said I thought it was a misprint on their roster.
Right.
And here he has. He's been forced to play. And I feel like that when Roy McGowan got hurt, kind of took their heart and soul away, and so I feel like they've kind of struggled to stay motivated. It looks like, as tough as that can be. And, the head coach is doing a great job. The players love him, and Coach Guerra. I just think they're in a really tough spot. I think there's going to be a lot of offense. I like Derek Davis on Leo. and Ellison Cox, young guy who's going to be really good. Joe, I'm going to pick Leo in the upset on this one.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah. Yeah, that I'm not all that surprised or altogether surprised about that, Dan. It's something I thought about as well. So good pick, and we'll see what happens in this game. Yeah. All right. So the last game is Marian Catholic versus De La Salle, and these are two programs that are in a bit of a different spot, right, from each other. I feel like De La Salle is very young. And trying to get their program back on the right track after several down years, and I feel like they've done that to some extent this year. I feel like they've got some numbers. They're young, but they've got some kids who are committed to the program, and I think Coach Blackman has them on the right track. Unfortunately, they don't. They're young, like I mentioned, and they're going up against some really talented teams. And Marian Catholic, even though they haven't had a great year, they've got some real talent on offense. They've got some size as well, and I think they're going to outmatch De La Salle in this game in both of those areas as far as talent and size. I don't like, or I'd like to see more from Marian Catholic's defense. I don't think their defense has been all that great this year, and but De La Salle hasn't been able to put up much points as well. So I do think Marian Catholic wins this game, and probably wins this game pretty easily. I think they're, the talent they have, especially on offense, is going to show up in this game, and they're probably going to put a fair amount of points on the board in this game. So I'm going to pick Marian Catholic over De La Salle.
Yeah, Joe, I'm with you. I'm going to pick Marian Catholic as well. One thing I'll say about De La Salle is when we started this, I think our first Prognosticus episode, we said, De La Salle's goal should be to make it through the season. And
right.
They're going to do that. So in a season where you don't get any wins, there's got to be, you've got to have something. I always say, you better have a lot of pizza parties if you're not going to win a lot on the field, but they have to kind of count this as a win. And I'm hoping that their players understand where they're at. They're playing a lot of young guys.
Right.
So Marian Catholic has some big names in this conference. Gavin Neal is a stud in this league. And Owen, why can't I think of his name? Askren. Yeah, he's a nice player. They've turned the ball over too much. They've had too many unforced errors, but I think that they have enough to beat De La Salle. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be going away, and looking forward to kind of seeing what Marian Catholic does, and looking forward to De La Salle getting to the off season where they can get some of these young guys in the weight room.
Okay. All right, so that wraps up our Week 9 Prognosticus episode for the Chicago Catholic League. By the time the lights go out on Friday night, some of the playoff brackets will be set. Some legacies will be written. A few hearts will be broken, I'm sure. But that's what makes Chicago Catholic League in football so special. We'll be back next week with full playoff coverage and our Week 9 recap. And, of course, another edition of Zuko's Dog of the Week to honor standout defensive performance across the league. Until then, I'm Joe Frevaletti. Here with me is Dan Frevaletti, and reminding you that in the Chicago Catholic League, the stories are real, the rivalries run deep, and the passion never fades. And we will see you under the Friday Night Lights.